is Brad Osrodis, and this man next to me is Colin Nealon, and we're gonna do this thing.
I don't actually get to introduce myself because Brad is afraid of letting me talk.
You can say some things.
My name is Colin Wheeler.
That's all. You go. Sit up there and look pretty. Sit. There you go. So, I mean, I very, very, very quickly want to preface this by addressing all of the weird internet weirdness in regards to...
Why do you hate Snape?
We're not going to talk about that. I have a whole separate thing about that. We're going to talk about Slytherins at GeekyCon, because Slytherins at GeekyCon are the best. And there seems to be some sort of impression on the internet that Slytherins at GeekyCon are not welcome, or that they can't have house pride here, and you know what? That is horseshit. Because Slytherins have always been at GeekyCon and always will be at GeekyCon. And I am incredibly proud to be here with all of you today, meeting up.
Has anyone here ever not felt safe being a Slytherin at GeekyCon?
You set them straight.
People are talking shit. But like, we can talk shit right back. Like Gryffindors? No, we love people of all houses.
Yes, to reiterate, we do love all
We
houses.
support Gryffindors, Ravenclaws, Hufflepuffs, Slytherins, and the LGBT community.
I mean, as Slytherins, we might be better than them, but we still do like them, I guess. So we're already gonna open it up to the floor because I see that there are people who want to speak, and this isn't about us just sitting up here talking. This is about everyone. So, the floor, questions, hands, shouting. Yes.
Down with comments.
Okay, so I went to Harry Hufflepuff Meetup, and we had a really great discussion about how Hufflepuff and Slytherins get along really well. And there's a lot of Slytherin Hufflepuff bonds in the Harry Potter community, and the Hufflepuff reasons why Slytherins like supported them and like made them maybe stand up more, made them like huff them up a little bit. I wanted to see like Slytherins who had Hufflepuff friends, how Hufflepuff friends have affected them, and like vice versa, like the Slytherin side of the friendship or the bond.
Totally. To start off, actually, my very good friend Lizzie ran the Hufflepuff Meetup. So there's already, a connection involved in that.
And for years, I called myself a Slitherpuff because I was really, when Pottermore would sort me either way when I tried a couple times, and I think they're complementary. I think they're complementary houses because in the books, Slytherins never really, Slytherins were kind of screwed over in that last book in which none of them helped out.
Yes. Slytherins are more.
And Hufflepuffs are all about being helpful and being there and when needed. Thank you.
And you know what it is too? I think part of it is the underdog sort of story of Hufflepuff. Slytherins are never afraid to capitalize on a good opportunity. And you know what? There are plenty of great Hufflepuffs out there who can do great stuff. And we can use them to do great stuff. So there's never a Slytherin out there that is going to look at a Hufflepuff who is useful to them and say, nah, not today.
Slytherins never really got to be helpful in canon. I think a lot of us sympathize with Hufflepuffs or identify, as a Slitherpuff because we see, those ambitious traits, but also that I want to help out trait. Yes.
Definitely. And I mean, there's the other side of the Slitherpuff equation too, which is people who are so nice and so friendly and so amazing, and then you cross them and you never wake up again. Those are the scary Slitherpuffs, but they're out there, folks. In the purple.
Nope. My little brother is a Hufflepuff, and he was just here with me because he doesn't have a phone and I didn't want to leave him alone. But he left, I sent him away. But I was a hack stall on Pottermore, like seeing how they love it.
Really?
Yeah. And I do, I would say, I'm a Slitherpuff. And my boyfriend likes to tease me when I rant about, extremely Hufflepuff things, but in a Slytherin way. I ranted at him about people being nice once, and he was like, this is it. This is the exact, moment that you are both of them.
It's amazing how Slitherpuff is one of those things that people will swear up and down doesn't exist and cannot exist, and then you meet a person who is a Slitherpuff, and it all becomes extremely clear.
Okay. I had friends send me a picture that said there were two people most likely to take over the world and be a Slytherin and a Hufflepuff.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that sentiment. Yes.
So my
Yeah, I agree with you. Slytherins and Hufflepuffs are really the butt of a lot of jokes. Ravenclaws, like, no one, I feel, jokes about Ravenclaws. And Gryffindor is like, yeah, they have this reputation of being douchebags, but...
See also Harry Potter.
But, like, see also Harry Potter. So, like, they get to just like, oh, I'm fucking Harry Potter.
There's not a whole lot that you can say about Gryffindor that doesn't end in a rebuttal,
But
yeah,
Harry Potter.
Me and my best friend are all supposed to go to Disney like this past week, and like we're joking about you know like being together because I make all the decisions like we're going to start, just like oh, okay, and like what do you want to do? Oh, I don't know, you can decide. It's like you don't make any decisions, so we make those decisions. Like, oh, work together. I decided to school. You don't want to sign yourself.
There's definitely a complementary aspect, I think, to the two houses, more so than a lot of the other houses that, you know, can have a lot of friction over different qualities. Slytherin and Hufflepuff fit very nicely together. Yes, in the back.
My best friend is a Hufflepuff, and we live together, and she's the one who makes sure that I eat instead of not going off and running into my little, you know, I have to take care of this, I have to take care of that. Like, Hufflepuffs have that whole nurturing aspect, and since Slytherins are so ambitious and like we have to go take care of everything, we kind of forget to do those things. So having a good loyal Hufflepuff around kind of makes sure you take care of the self-care aspects because you can forget them in your conquest of whatever you're trying to take over.
Something I always like to talk with other GeekyCon and now GeekyCon attendees about are the defining characteristics of Slytherins, because I feel like everyone kind of has a different answer. When I think about the defining characteristics of Slytherin, I think ambitious, somewhat cutthroat. But then sometimes people disagree with me. They don't think that Slytherins are all like the stab in the back kind of people. And I'm just curious what people here think, like what your top 3 characteristics of a Slytherin are.
I would say self-preservation, because if you're looking out for yourself, you'll do whatever it takes to be safe. You need that safety net. Like when you think of the Malfoy family, it came after looking after their son. They would do anything for Draco. So it came for like, we have to keep our family together. And so to stay together, I will do anything for that safety. So the safety is like the self-preservation, I think, takes a huge precedent in this Slytherin.
I definitely agree with that. I think that would be my number 1 Slytherin characterization.
And it's really great. It's fascinating when Slytherins break out of that, like when God, what is Draco's mother's name? Slytherin says. When she risks going against Voldemort's inclemency in the 7th book by lying about Harry's death, that was a really powerful moment. And I think Slytherins show a lot of power.
It was a very humanizing moment, I think. A lot of people...
For a house that is very rarely humanized in the books.
Exactly, a very two-dimensional portrayal, I think, of Slytherin is the dominating narrative. And so the problem with that is that a lot of people who read the books not thinking critically, not identifying with Slytherin, maybe because they're so deep into other houses, think that you have the cartoony Machiavellian villain, and that's the extent of the house. But that was a moment that I think for a lot of people really opened their eyes to the fact that there's a hell of a lot more to people who are in Slytherin than just this, cartoonish evil.
And it's why, sorry, Natalia.
So I was at the park yesterday, and they had the gauntlet with all the characters.
Don't even get me started.
Yes. So for Ravenclaw, it was wise. For Hufflepuff, it was loyal. Gryffindor was brave. Slytherin had shrewd.
Shrewd. Of all the characterizations you could use.
That is the bull shrewd.
Efficient merchandise, not ambitious, not cunning,
And I think this is why I think that Slytherins really get to leverage some fanon and some deep reading of the book. I know Brad knows a lot about fanon. Okay, that joke didn't. Okay. He got it. Anyways, but I think we're allowed to leverage a lot of fanon because we didn't get a fair portrayal in the book, so we kind of get to decide more about our house than other houses. And I think that it's great, and I also think it can lead to some disagreements within the Slytherin community.
It goes both ways, certainly, because what a lot of people forget is that the books are told from Harry's perspective, and they are biased because of that perspective. That's how it is, though there is sort of an omniscient narrator, it is essentially all colored through his eyes and his events and the things that he experiences, and that's generally not very complimentary to Slytherin. The problem is that a lot of people outside of our station don't understand that there is a difference between fanon and, exploring possibilities and ideas about houses that aren't featured in the books versus actual contextual reading and, drawing real conclusions about what we do and who we are that the books never attempted to get at.
Going back to characteristics a little bit, I think like outside the book, like with us as Slytherin, we've evolved from just like taking care of our house and our people and our hobbies to kind of taking care of everybody. Like our friends, no matter what house, and people that we always have the urge to stand up for people and stand up for our point. And I think that evolution happens in real life and real life.
I think we have very strong values and strong faith in our values, and we will cut the throat of anyone who goes against it. I find myself at work a lot. I work with a lot of people very different than me who have grown up very sheltered and have, I'm the first gay person they've ever talked to. And if I hear them talking about gay people or trans people negatively, oh my God, get ready.
It's, again, it's coming from that outside perspective where people who aren't Slytherin don't realize that there is this intense, incredible loyalty and sort of brothership between everyone in the house, because it's, you may be ruthless and cutthroat with people who stand in your way, but you're the first person to jump in the line of defense of those you care about. And
so it's interesting you bring that up, because there's been this, there's an article, I don't know if any of you saw, about what would have happened. It was essentially what would have happened if the spare that Voldemort had killed back in book 4 had been a Slytherin, and the possible path of the books after that. And I don't know, Brad, if you read that or if anyone else wants to share comments about it.
To start, essentially, to sum it very briefly up, what happens is, in this theory, it posits that Cassius Warrington, who was the Slytherin who entered his name into the Goblet of Fire, and so ostensibly could have been a champion if Cedric Diggory wasn't picked. If he was picked and made it all the way through and got to the maze, and inevitably he was the spare that Voldemort killed, and how that would so, massively change everything in the books in terms of how Slytherins interact with the other houses, because that would be sort of a watershed moment for so many of them that, had been sheltered by their parents' beliefs and weren't sure where they fit into the world. Once they realized that, they had allies in the rest of the school, and that, Voldemort and their parents weren't the be-all, end-all answer, it turns into this other sort of thing where Slytherins were allowed and, very naturally able to integrate into the rest of the school and become part of the DA and, fight in the Battle of Hogwarts and actually fully get their proper due, I think. Yes.
I just had this thought that, why would any Slytherin in the books, like the book that Harry is in them, go to any other house for help or extend like inter-house friendships when all of them are like shitty to them? Like, you don't go to the people that bully you for friendship. You turn to the people that are also being bullied. Which I think goes into that Hufflepuff Slytherin relationship that you're like, yeah, they're shitting on you too.
You have a shared bond, right?
Here we go.
I think there were a lot of, secret or down low friendships with Slytherins and other houses, because Slytherins, again, they're the first to capitalize on opportunities. So if there's people that they can meet that can be their friends, whatever, it doesn't matter what house you are, as long as you're a person of value and worth to them, which, there's a lot of different ways you can provide worth to another person, right? So it's not advantageous for anyone, it's for Hufflepuff, for other houses to be seen interacting with Slytherin. And again, there is sort of the way it blows back within the house itself, but you just know people became friends in spite of themselves, in spite of where they were in Hogwarts, and in spite of the really dumb, restrictive system that kind of kept people from getting closer together. Yeah. That's definitely one way of thinking, yes.
And to hear more about that way of thinking, go to a panel led by Brad called Snape and the Deathly Fedora.
Yes. I guess since Colin brought it up, I'll take the moment to plug it now. My panel is on Saturday. It's it's going to be good. It's all about Snape and Lily and the contextualization of the relationship outside of, I guess, the traditionally viewed idea that it was romantic love that Snape experienced for her, and that it was, very tragic and beautiful that he died for her 20-odd years after she stopped caring about him as a person because he was toxic and she needed to cut him out of her life. But we'll get into all that later on.
I cannot wait for this.
Yes.
Wherein I'm talking about how Snape's affections, whatever they
is super cool, and I definitely encourage you to go to Savannah's panel, because that's awesome as hell.
Look,
Again,
they like each other.
yeah. No, we support all sides here. Nobody's about trying to shout over everybody else. But yeah, they had a very interesting childhood together and had like a strong bond going into Hogwarts. So even though they were, on polar opposites in terms of houses, and eventually they grew up to have very different values as people, they had such a strong friendship for so long, in spite of the fact that their values were so different, because they had this existing bond. So there's more to people than what house they're in, I think, is the key message here. And that would definitely come through in the classes you would share together, living together all in the same space. There's no way that you couldn't form bonds with other people just because they're in a different house.
There is no them, only facets of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wondering, how do you think the books would have gone differently if the Sorting Hat had went with its original choice and put Harry in Slytherin?
I think it would have been a form of, I guess, bringing it back almost for Slytherin. That would be their great redemption. It would be a redemption arc, I guess, instead of the hero's journey that we're sort of met with. Because there's obviously, with Harry being the main character, and being who Harry is, who is a very critically thinking person, who is always, fighting against the system, trying to see the truth of things in spite of what he's potentially told or what the prevailing narrative is about something. He's always trying to get to the heart of what things are really about. And with Slytherin, I think it would be inevitable that he would very quickly realize that there's so much more to the house than, what he potentially thought of them as a Gryffindor. So for that, I think it's a very fascinating possibility of how Harry could really lead the charge for Slytherin to get away from, the dominating narrative of evil, racism, etc.
But interestingly, if we continue down the book's path, there is this inevitability that Voldemort is going to have to turn against Harry, despite them both being Slytherins, and I'm curious and this is kind of going down the same path of what if it was what was his name? Warrington getting picked for the Goblet of Fire and being the Spare that is killed. If Voldemort was turning against Harry, how the Slytherin house would have reacted. Interesting to consider.
Maybe the kids stand up to their parents.
I think absolutely.
If they form a stronger bond to Harry than their parents, because they're at school 9 months out of the year, that
Yeah.
bond is going to be probably stronger to their friends than their estranged family.
And their parents aren't telling them all the truth, or potentially even any of the truth. And that's one of the big things. That's one of the great divides between, these kids of Death Eater parents and other students at school, is that they really don't have the whole narrative or even any of it, potentially. So to give them an opportunity where they're exposed to the truth and they realize, without a doubt, what is actually happening out there and what Voldemort's really doing, I mean, that would be a powerful moment for a lot of Slytherin, and I think that would be the catalyst for them to really turn against their parents and start questioning what's going on in that regard.
I think it would have been an interesting addition to the books, because I'm not sure that the Harry Potter series has this explicit adults are fallible theme with it. Like Matilda, the book, I'm sure you've heard of it, has this clear, adults are worth punishing if they do bad things, and adults are fallible. But the Harry Potter books don't have that as much. A little bit with Dumbledore.
It's
that's
certainly
up for
there in
debate.
subtext.
It's in there in subtext, but the explicit theme is not there.
Yes.
I think it would have been if, I think J.K. Rowling, I don't want to call J.K. Rowling a lazy writer, but I think there could have been so much more done with Slytherins, especially if she had given them any chance of redemption whatsoever.
And I think the chief problem too is that there are a lot of very easy ways that she could have done that.
And she chose Snape,
yes.
Giving the memories to Harry, and
there are a lot of ways that she chose not to give Slytherin the due that I think it deserved. And even, and without modifying the existing framework of the narrative, without making massive, substantial changes, there are a lot of ways that Slytherin, could have been more active, especially towards the end of the series, more actively involved in the happenings, the things that were going on. Because I think it's honestly naive and maybe a little foolish to expect that, 25% of an entire population of all the kids in this school are just not going to question what's going on and not think about it and not be involved at all.
It's like the beginning of my early experience with hippies was that there's never been a family that was not in Slytherin. When you get that, when it gets stated by actors.
grammatically ridiculous line, where you don't really know if it's all of them are bad. None of them that are bad aren't bad. And it just seems, I have
False
like,
either way.
it is.
Either way, it's wrong. Definitively wrong. Yeah.
But Hagrid is biased. Like, let's not, Hagrid was, what house was Hagrid? Gryffindor. Like, Hagrid himself is biased.
Of course. So,
I think like one of the easiest ways they could have had, you know, that redemption and that Slytherin, it wouldn't have hurt the narrative at all. It's like in the Battle of Hogwarts, when all the Slytherins were just indiscriminately sent down to the dungeons, maybe some of them could have said, hey, I'd like to fight to defend my life and this school.
exactly. And
Maybe
the
don't
school
lock me.
that I love and have gone to for however many years.
Yeah.
Really?
Exactly. And that's-
They were of the battle.
That's-
They came back to Slughorn to fight part of the house. So
I
to me, she did
forgot about that.
redeem us in that sense. You know, they were the smart ones. They were the ones that said, we are number how many to how many? Let's go get help and let's come back. If they had not done that, they would have lost the battle of Hogwarts.
Yeah,
Good
and
point.
it was in the movie
Very good point.
that they kind of said
In the
it all
movie,
away.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Movies
Movies are always going to simplify facts, essentially, and especially with Slytherin, it's very easy to simplify, again, into a cartoonish portrayal of what a Slytherin actually is.
And Slytherins are really loyal as it is, so I think if even one Slytherin was like, I'm gonna fight for my girlfriend, boyfriend, friend in another house, then another Slytherin would be like, okay, now I'm fighting, then I'm fighting, then I'm fighting, then I'm fighting.
Exactly.
And even they're loyal to Hogwarts, like that's, you know, their school, they're loyal to their own house and they're gonna defend it.
They're loyal to Slughorn, and I mean, that's the other thing. Slughorn was a perfect opportunity to redeem Slytherins, is to show, again, that there is a completely different side to the house that hasn't necessarily been explored in the books, and that was, you know, besides providing Harry with, you know, some contextual clues and some things he needed to move the narrative along, there really wasn't a whole lot done with his character to try and evangelize Slytherins in the way that they maybe, again, deserve. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So do you think that now that we're having some more opportunity for canon, Fantastic Beasts is supposed to be set in the U.S., so I'm not sure we get a lot there, but you know, J.K. Rowling is writing that Cursed Child play. I wonder if we'll have any more chances for a redemption arc for Slytherin within canon, now that we're getting more of it. I'm not optimistic either. But as a discussion point.
From everything that J.K.R. has said after the release of Deathly Hallows, it seemed that she tends to hold the same biases as the characters in her books, unfortunately, in that she has a fairly narrow idea of what a Slytherin is, and crafted the house based around those ideas without considering the fact that there is an entirely different side to that, and there would have to naturally be a different side to balance that out.
I might have to really sad because this is Slytherin her like second favorite house.
I don't actually know.
Yeah, as she said, like that's where you with colors. Her personal favorites that they're gold, Slytherins are her second favorites, they're silver, and then that's how their house got their color. I remember reading an article a really long time ago about that.
I'm not sure.
Well,
I can't confirm that. So if that was the case, it would
Weird that
it would be very
it's
strange. Yeah, exactly. That it would be so unfavorable.
I think maybe with Slytherins being holding captives, going back to the Battle of Hogwarts, like it might have been more in character for them to go into hiding, get like a grip on the situation, and then come back rather than like charging into battle with a giant sword or whatever they're doing.
Absolutely, but I mean, when you consider the fact that by the seventh book, Voldemort had been active and, you know, killing people in the world for 2 years by that point, like it's pretty hard to ignore the fact that there's some stuff going on here. So I mean, they had time. By Order of the Phoenix, it's totally understandable that there's going to be some skepticism. There's still a massive, huge divide between the houses by the fifth book that is not about to just disappear in the face of, you know, what's going on. But given that you do have a pretty expansive time period there, and you have a lot of stuff going on in between, I think by the time Deathly Hallows rolls around, there is, you know, a definite point in which a lot of Slytherins, I think, would have turned the narrative around.
You saying you're talking about the sword remind me, I have a Slytherin best friend back home, and we sit and talk Slytherin headcanon all the time. sword is like a very offensive weapon, and it's like bright and flashy and courageous, like a symbol of like chivalry and knight's all this. And then Hufflepuff is like, puffs are a communal sign of like, you break bread with someone, you're friends with someone. She was all food charm and everything. Ravenclaw's all about like, it's on her head, but it's simple, it's not as flashy as the sword, it's like this very classic, classy symbol. And we got to Slytherin and I was like, it's not anything about like power or cunning, it's what is important to you is locked away and kept safe. And that the locket is where you hold a symbol of someone you love or something that's important to you, and it's locked away and it's kept close to your heart. And that's like the one trait of Slytherin that's in that object. Like if you're like, oh, sword is chivalry, Puff is community, like all this. Slytherin is safe, protective, something that is of value to me.
Yeah, I'd actually never thought of that characterization before, and that's amazing. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, it fits perfectly, right? Like and it's the most overlooked trait of Slytherin, I guess, especially from outside houses. That.
But Brad, don't you take the position that, keeping that thing close to you and protected can be creepy after 20 years?
Certainly it can. But I mean,
checkmate.
Protecting those who are close and important to you, who you have meaningful relationships with, perhaps.
They grew up together.
Yes, and that's fine, but when you...
This is not the panel.
No, this is not the panel for that. I promise you, we'll discuss this in my other panel.
One comment and one question. But like, so many activists I know are Slytherin, and I think that comes from like Slytherin values, like being energized with like activism. But also like, I feel like it's such a disservice that we didn't get any Slytherins who, can stand up for like the house elves or Muggle-born Slytherins. Like, there's so much like race and everything.
I have a response to that in a little bit. Regulus Black is one of the most overlooked characters in the entire series, incredibly underrated, and that is the perfect example of what a Slytherin can be. When they rise above, all of the BS, all of the things that you're fed as being part of the house, potentially, growing up in that sort of environment. That's what you can ascend to. And people so often forget that, and forget how incredible his contributions were from, again, look at how close him and Creature were. Look at the way that Sirius, a Gryffindor, treats a house elf. Look at how so many different people treat house elves as totally inferior and strong. I mean, it's, there you go. You have a dyed-in-the-wool Slytherin, fanatical parents. You're in a family that has a very unhealthy attitude, I guess, towards a lot of different things. And you have this person who transcended all of it to do the right thing.